Hey, look at that. We're the first ones to review the Walther PDP. Wait, never mind. We're late as usual. Hey, what's up, fellas? Hope you're having a great holiday. So it seems like hitting 1,000 rounds is some kind of a magic number on YouTube, so we're finally eligible to offer our own thoughts on this pair. And by this pair, we're talking about both the PDP-4 Compact and the PDP-5 Full Size. So I think it's important to mention the exact models here because it can get a little confusing, but I think it's a good thing because Walther pulls his BK move here, so you can have it any way you want. You can mix and match your frames and slides in whatever crazy combo you want. Here you can see the compact and full-size grips with different combos of both the 4 and 5-inch slides. And as an added bonus, did you know that those Walther parts can go with everything? Grab that Walther slide. Walther slide. And Canic lower. Canic SFX lower. They fit. You can dry fire it. But will it fire? Canic mag. Alright. Go for it, Max.
It didn't lock back.
Oh, it didn't lock back? It didn't malfunction either.
It does lock back by the magazine, but it didn't lock back in live fire.
I'm the best ever.
So along with that modularity, you can also see the two sets of magazines here based on whether you went with a compact or full size. The 15 round compact mags with the orange followers and the 18 round full size mags with the blue followers. These mags are really nice too, considering that they've got steel all around, not just for the mag body, but the springs and the feed lips as well. The only polymer you'll see here are the impact resistant base pads. And that's good because we drop these mags a lot and had exactly 0 mag related malfunctions. They were just super reliable. At $40 to $50 a piece, they're not as cheap as Glock mags, and it would have been cool if Walther included 3 instead of 2, but considering their quality, it's not too bad of a deal. Speaking of changing mags, I really dig the circular serrated mag release they have here. It's got good traction on it, so your thumb's never going to miss it, and it's just out far enough from the grip that you're not going to have problems finding it under speed. And while we're also talking reloads, it also comes with an ambi slide release that has a little ridge for positive feel and function. While working it dry, I noticed that you could hit it comfortably every time, but its location makes it kind of prone to your support hand pushing up against it and holding down the slide stop. So you may not get last round slide lock every time, so work it with your own support hand to see if this happens to you, and if it does, you may have to adjust your grip slightly. The other major profile item you'll notice is its weight. The 4-inch compact comes in at around 22 ounces empty, and that's even with a dot, so that's pretty impressive considering a stock G17 is around 22 ounces as well. And the Walther comes with just more out of the box. If you move up to the 5-inch slide with the full-size grip, it's around 23 ounces empty, so that's also aligned closely with a Glock 34, so Walther knows their competition really well. And while we're talking about that slide, if you're into aesthetics, I think this is a standout feature because it looks just really badass. Describing these slide cuts as aggressive is really an understatement considering I think they made the slide thicker to accommodate an even deeper cut for even more traction, but it's still not sharp enough to where it's going to cut you if you're moving your hand really quickly across it. The only downside we noticed that the slide is thicker, so it tends to not fit as many holsters as we use the Safariland GLS on this channel, and it would not fit that holster. Even our custom Kydex one that we had made was a really tight fit and it hung up sometimes on the draw. So be sure to find a holster specifically for your Walther PDP model. Speaking of that top end, let's talk about the irons real quick. It comes with traditional 3-dot sights, and even though they're polymer, I thought they functioned well. There's enough spacing in the rears for the front sight notch, so it's not too crowded of a sight picture. And additionally, the rear sight is adjustable for both windage and elevation. But if you don't like these factory slides, you can swap them easily since Walther opted for a Glock sight cut, and that was a really smart decision as that made it really easy to find alternatives. That is, if you don't opt to go with a red dot instead. This slide does come optics ready out of the box, but no plates out of the box. At least we didn't get any with our 2 models. They are free, but you will need to contact Walther to send them to you. I can see why they did this since it saves money, but then again, most manufacturers already include all the plates with it. So I think Walther probably should just follow that same playbook. Having said that, it wasn't too big of a hassle to get the Dr. Optic plate that we needed since we're pairing the PDP Compact with a Crimson Trace CT Rad Pro. Okay, so if you look at the Crimson Trace pistol dot line, it can be a little confusing since they dropped a bunch of sights at the same time. For full-size pistols, you get a choice of the CT Rad, the Rad Pro, and the Rad Pro Max. The Pro Max is a step up in size, so it's a bigger sight. It's really more intended for rifles and PCCs. Our model, the Rad Pro, is just like the base Rad model, except it has the premium features like the top-mounted battery tray, the auto-off, and the shake-awake. now that we got our model straightened out, let's take a closer look at this Rad Pro. First, the glass surprised me a bit when it came to the clarity. Considering its relatively low price, I was expecting a bit of edge distortion, but on this model, when you're panning through close and medium range targets, you don't see too much bending of the image, so targets are pretty close to 1x as they should be. One other thing to notice is its large window size, which is wider than it is taller. This larger window really helps when you're acquiring the dot on presentation or tracking the sight in recoil. And as far as dot brightness, well, this is the one area where its price point does show. As you guys know, we shoot in the brightest sunlight on Earth, also known as the desert. So if your dot can overpower the sun here, it can do it anywhere. And at its maximum brightness, the dot is just barely bright enough for that type of lighting. It's fine for most colors like this sand background, but if you're pointing at a white target, the dot may get a little lost in that contrast. So in low light, it's no problem. So you can dial the dot just bright enough for that type of environment and with working with white light. This dot brightness reminds me a lot of the earlier Swamp Fox and Vortex Viper series. So definitely not as bright as Holosun. Our Rad Pro came in red, so it's a 3 MOA dot, which I personally think is the perfect size. I know some guys like the bigger 6 MOA dot that you can find on like the Rad Pro green, but in my experience, easier to make a smaller dot big through brightness adjustments than making a bigger dot small. One last note about this dot is the battery life is around 20,000 hours, so it's plenty enough to set a yearly reminder to change your battery. The battery life is extended even longer with the 2-minute auto shut off and a shake away feature. So to control our dot, it has big clickable buttons on both the left and right. So it's similar to an RMR. So if you want to adjust the blind, you can do that. But unlike an RMR, you can change the battery with this top mounted 1632 battery tray without having to remount and re-zero your optic. By the way, while we're talking externals, there's a little mention on their website about some reinforced aluminum housing to better withstand impacts to the sight. But does that really work? Well, let's see. First, we'll shoot a 10-round group at 25 yards with the PDP 5. And then, finally, we'll shoot another 10-round group again and check for any POI shifts. So it looks to me that it's about the same before and after, so our 0 is staying intact. Now let's check for exterior damage to the unit itself. Well, the only remnant that I could see was this slight crack on the left edge of the optic. It must have taken a brunt in the impact there, but surprisingly, it had no effect on the dot or sight itself. So I think the verdict is this sight is pretty durable and that reinforced housing does work. So with this dot, we shoot the gun pretty fast and reasonably flat. I say reasonably because I think the bore axis on the PDP series is a little bit higher than usual, definitely higher than a Glock if you're used to that. So maybe you have to grip the gun a little higher and a little harder than normal. So some would say the gun is a little quote unquote snappy. Having said that, the recoil impulse does predictably return the gun back to its starting point while it's cycling. So mix that with your fundamentals and you likely won't notice that snapping too much. So what really helps control that recoil is the grip texture. I can't imagine more aggressive texture without making you bleed than what's included here. A big addition is the texture makes it all the way up to the slide. So your support hand is going to be happy since you'll have a lot of surface area for you to park it there. It just simply allows you to control the recoil that much better. At the bottom of grip, it's extended down far enough so the back of your hand won't end up getting pinched during reloads. And that's even the case with a smaller compact grip. By the way, it does come with 3 back straps, so you definitely want to play with those and find the right one to adjust the distance for your web of your hand to the trigger. Generally, I found that you want to use the larger back strap. Since the factory one is a little bit small, the goal here is you want to leave as much grip exposed for your sport hand as possible while still allowing your trigger finger to reach. So you can shoot it fast up close. How does it do at range? As mentioned, a smaller dot does help you when you're shooting at 50 to 100 yard IPSCs, as you can see here. And when you're at that distance, what also matters a lot is the trigger. The PDP comes with what Walther calls the performance duty trigger, the PDT. And if you listen to the online hubbub, it's supposedly the best factory striker-fed trigger there is. I don't know if that's the case, but it's really, really good. The first thing you'll notice on your trigger pull here is the really light take-up. Usually during that take-up, I look for any drag, friction, or rubbing on the frame, like what you get with like on an M&P. But with this Walther, it was just really smooth. And once you hit that wall, it's very distinct, so there's no mistaking it. And once you break through that wall, which is really crisp, the reset is tactile and short as well. Typically, you're not going to feel the reset when you're shooting really fast, but at distance, it can really help. Overall, the trigger is around 5 pounds, but I think it feels a little bit lighter than that. So I don't know if it's the best trigger out of the box, but it's definitely one of the best. Although I'm curious about the next upgrade from this, which is the Walther Dynamic Performance Trigger. Since it's offered straight from them, you know compatibility is not going to be an issue. With its aluminum construction and flat face trigger, I bet it would be a really excellent addition to the PDP-5 for competition. So having run through all the features on this gun, I think the last thing we want to mention is the price. This is the biggest advantage the PDP has over its competitors, since the full-size version can compete with other competition-oriented guns. The PDP offers a lot of the same upgrades for less, with the MSRP around $600. So even if you decide to upgrade the factory trigger to the dynamic trigger, you're still not even approaching 1K. Really, the only thing that's going to come close to it is the Kinect SFX, which we will look at in a later video. Having some rounds through both these guns now, I'd say it's a really close call between them. But overall, I think Walther does tend to take the nod. It's just a little bit more refined with small details like that larger surface area for the textured grip, the universal Glock sight cut, the interoperability of the slide and the frame. So in the end, what you've heard about this Walther is true. It's just fantastic out of the box and can get even better with reasonably priced upgrades. There's really no reason not to add one or two, in this case, to your collection. Well, that's it for this video, fellas. Thanks for joining us today. And if you found this video helpful, consider sharing it so this small channel can keep growing. And as always, check out the description if you're interested in any equipment seen here. Thanks again. We'll see you guys again next time.